Imagine standing at the edge of a sparkling pool, the cheers of a packed crowd, echoing as the orca beside you lips gracefully on command, the audience thrilled by the spectacle they've paid good money to see erupts with excitement. Everything feels perfect. Then in a heartbeat, the mood shifts. The orca's playful energy becomes something darker before you can react. Its immense jaws close around you, dragging you into the depth. Crowds' cheers turn to screams as water churns with violence. This waste. Horrifying reality? Jessica Radcliffe, a day that transformed her passion in tow, unimaginable. Terror, but what unfolded next was even more devastating. Jessica Radcliffe seemed destined for a career working with marine animals. Her father, a marine biologist, specializing in cetaceans, introduced her to the wonders of the ocean at a young age. Growing up near the Pacific coast, Jessica often accompanied him on research trips, watching in awe Ash studied dolphins and whales. Her fascination grew stronger after attending her first orca show at OceanLand Marine Park, a facility inspired by the success of SeaWorld and quickly gaining fame near Monterey, California. From that moment, Jessica was determined to become an orca trainer. At just 19, Jessica began working at Ocean, starting as an intern while pursuing a degree in marine biology. Her dedication and natural talent quickly set her apprentice within a year. She secured a permanent position as part of the training team. By 21, Jessica had achieved a wit few her age could claim. She had become the lead trainer for Malo, the park's largest and most popular orca. At 22 feet long and weighing nearly 12.0 lb, Malo was the centerpiece of OceanLand 6 weekly orca shows, drawing thousands of visitors each week. Jessica's bond with Malo was remarkable, with many colleagues noting their unique connection, while other trainers found Malo challenging. At times, Jessica's aimed to bring out the best in him. However, troubling signs began to emerge. Malo started exhibiting erratic behavior, including increased aggression during feeding sessions, refusal to perform commands, and tail slapping against the tank walls. On one occasion, lunged at a trainer during feeding, forcing them to leap back from the tank. It around Jessica, Malo remained calm, cooperative, responding to her commands with precision, believing she had a special ability to manage Malo Park. Management decided she should lead all shows involving him, despite concerns raised by other staff members. On the day off, a headline show, OceanLand was packed with eager visitors. Families filled the stands, children clutching cotton can sigh as they eagerly awaited the performance. The buzz of excitement was contagious as the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, introducing Jessica and Malo to roaring applause. Jessica stepped onto the platform with a confidence that belied her years, flashing a bright smile at the audience, signaling Malo to begin. The performance began smoothly, with Malo completing his routines flawlessly under Jessica's guidance. The orca's massive dorsal fins sliced through the water. Ash performed each move with precision, following her commands with a cetacean. The crowd erupted in applause. Malo delivered a breathtaking breach, launching his enormous body out of the water and crashing back down in a spectacular splash that drenched the front rows. Children squealed with delight as waves of water surged into his audience, and parents joined in the applause, captivated by the connection between Jessica and the majestic orca. Finale involved Jessica entering the tank for a synchronized swim routine, with Malo a signature act that thrilled audiences. As Jessica dove into the water, Malo circled her in what appeared to be playful manner, but suddenly, without warning, Malo lunged, clamping his powerful jaws around Jessica's upper torso. The impact was instant and ferocious, knocking the wind out of her. Gasps and screams erupted from the crowd as they watched Malo thrash her in the water. The trainers on the platform immediately sprang into action. Emergency signals were triggered, and distraction techniques were deployed. They threw buoys, ropes, and even fish into the tank, desperately trying to draw Malo's attention away from Jessica. The trainers prepared to enter the water with Palesto attempt to rescue, but the ferocity of Malo's movements made it impossible to safely intervene. Jessica was held underwater for over a minute as Malo twisted and thrashed his immenses, leaving her no chance to escape. Orca's powerful jaws caused catastrophic internal injuries, including fractured ribs, a punctured lung, and massive trauma to Her chest blood-clouded the water as Jessica's limp body was finally released, floating to the surface. Rescue divers pulled Jessica from the tank within seconds, but the damage was too severe. Attempts to resuscitate her on the pool deck failed and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Her injuries were later confirmed to include severe blunt force trauma and drowning. As the horrifying scene unfolded, staff worked frantically to evacuate the audience. Panicked crescicode through the stands as parents yelled their children from the gruesome sight. Many young visitors, some clutching souvenirs from the show, were left visibly traumatized. Several families hurried out of the stadium while others stood frozen and shockable to process the tragedy they had just witnessed. The tragedy sent shockwaves through Ocean Haven and the marine park industry at large. Jessica was widely regarded as one of the most skilled and compassionate trainers at the park, with an unparalleled bond with Malo. Her death left many questioning how such a tragedy could happen, especially with someone who had the closest relationship to the orca. Was it simply a case of Mao's wild instincts taking over, or were there warning signs that the park failed to address colleagues and visitors? Mourn Jessica's a dedicated trainer. The ocean, rather, remembered her passion, her courage, and her devotion to Malo, but her death also sparked outrage and debate. Could Ocean Haven have done more to prevent this? Should Mao's previous erratic behavior had been taken more seriously? And most importantly, should orcas even kept in captivity at all following the incident? Ocean Haven Marine Park permanently shut its gates. The decision was made to relocate Malo to a newly established marine sanctuary off the coast of Washington state, where he could hold out the rest of his life in an enclosed ocean environment with minimal human interaction. While it could never replace the vastness of the open ocean sanctuary, provided Malo a chance to live more naturally away from the pressures of performing the tragic Losef. Jessica opened many eyes to the dangers of working with orcas, but what if the next victim wasn't even a trainer at SeaWorld Orlando? A chilling and deeply puzzling incident unfolded, this time involving a visitor at the Hardo Fit. Was Tilikum, a massive orca with a haunting past, who turned curiosity into a devastating and shocking tragedy. Viewer discretion is advised. This is ONF. The most confusing and heart-stopping Orca encounters you'll ever hear. Abudi was a quiet July night at SeaWorld Orlando. Florida. During the day, the sprawling park buzzed with families and excitement, but now it lay silent under the faint glow of the moon. The only sounds were the gentle ripples in Thea tanks, where the park's most famous residents rested in the largest enclosure. Swam Tilikum at 12.0 pounds, or measuring over 22 feet in length, known for its immense size and striking black and white patterns. Tilikum was both inspiring and enigmatic, a creature whose sheer presence hinted at raw, untamed power beneath the surface. But this calm was about to shatter with the arrival of an unexpected intruder. Daniel Dukes, a 27-year-old drifter, was a man of contradictions. He had a troubled history marked by drug abuse and a string of petty arrests for offenses
like trespassing, theft, and drug possession.
Gentle and nature-loving to some, and abhors described him as a kind soul, fed the homeless and cared for wildlife. Others saw a man wrestling with deep personal struggles. Dukes was also prone to impulsive, erratic behavior. In an infamous incident, he broke into the home of Richard Garrett, the creator of the game Ultima, which Dukes was repeatedly obsessed with. When Garrett fired a warning shot, Dukes bizarrely made his way to the bedroom, stripped down, and climbed into Garrett's bed. Before being arrested by police in the days leading up to his fateful encounter with Tim, Dukes had been arrested again and was reported living oddly in the SeaWorld Park. While most visitors saw orcas as mere spectacles, Dukes viewed them as spiritual beings, an idea that would ultimately lead him to close to danger. In the day of the incident, Daniel Dukes entered SeaWorld like any other guest, blending seamlessly into the crowds who wandered the park, taking in the sights, but it was clear that one attraction captured him more than any other. From the stands overlooking the orca, anxious gaze remained fixed on Tilikum while other visitors came and went, chatting and snapping photos. Daniel lingered, watching the massive orca with an intensity that set him apart. As the day drew to a close and the crowds began to oath in Daniel's behavior took on an unusual determination despite thebriers and prominent warning signs there in the enclosures. He showed no intention of leaving weather-driven be. A yearning for freedom, or a misguided belief in forging a deeper connection with the orca, his resolve was unshaken. When the park gates finally closed and the last visitors filed out, Daniel stayed behind, alone in his thoughts and purpose with the park. Now cloaked in darkness, Daniel made his move the unseverbrant sea world, now eerily deserted, transferred into a silent and shadowing expanse. Slipping past security unnoticed, Han navigated the grounds with careful determination as he approached Tilikum's enclosure. The path grew dim, lit only by faint overhead lights. The tank loomed ahead, an enormous shadowy abyss. The only sounds were the low hum of machinery and the gentle sloshing of water against the tank walls, a deceptive calm before events that would soon unfold. Standing at the edge, Duke street down to his shorts. Night air was cool against his skin, but he felt no hesitation. With a deep breath, he climbed over the barrier and slipped into the water. The surface rippled briefly before settling, leaving nothing but silence unbeknownst to Dukes. Tilikum was far from dormant beneath the water. The orca stirred, alerted by the disturbance. Years of captivity had dead Tilikum's connection, tough wild, but his instincts remained down to how his massive body moved graceful as Flethra. The water, his dark eyes fixed at him, the figure above it first. Dukes floated calmly, his movements cautious. Ash adjusted to the cool water. The tank felt larger than it appeared from the outside the depths, stretching into an unnerving darkness. But as he drifted, a shadow emerged beneath him. Tilikum's prince was immense, his bulk cutting through the water with quiet precision. Dukes was likely unaware of the danger. Runtle. It was too late. The attack was swift. Tilikum surged upward like a freight train ramming into Dukes with crushing force. The impact shattered his ribs, leaving him stunned and helpless against 0 pounds of raw power. Survival was impossible as the water erupted in a chaotic frenzy. Tilikum's jaws clamped down on Dukes's in an unexpected place, his scrotum with a powerful grip. The orca dragged him beneath the surface, pulling him deeper into the tank. The water churned violently as Tilikum thrashed his movements, a chilling combination of instinct and aggression. Within moments, water stilled again. Dukes's body floated lifelessly as Tilikum circled beneath him, nudging the figure as if trying to make sense of what had occurred. The next morning brought the discovery trainers arriving for Theta's preparations, found the scene horrific. Floating in the tank was the battered body of Daniel Dukes, his injuries severe and unmistakable. It was clear he had met a violent end. The orca's immense jaws had left deep wound sand. The evidence pointed to an attack of overwhelming force. The news spread quickly, leaving the public in shock. Questions swirled around how Dukes had managed to evade security and why he had entered the tank in the first place. Investigators pieced together Heist's actions, uncovering a mix of wanderlust and dangerous curiosity that had led him to the enclosure tease role, and the incident reignited a firestorm of Dubitithis was not the first death associated with the orca. His history included other incidents that had raised concerns of Buthis. Captivity critics argued that years of confinement had fostered aggression, the animal turning a once majestic predator into a ticking time bomb for SeaWorld. The tragedy was a public relations nightmare. The park faced renewed scrutiny over its practices, with activists pointing to Tilikum's violent story as evidence of the dangers of captivity. Yet, for all the outrage, the central question remained unanswered. What had driven Daniel Dukes to such a reckless act as the waters of Tilikum stank grew still? The horrors of that night served as a grim reminder. The real tragedy of captivity begins long before attacks. It starts when these majestic creatures are taken from thrilled and thrust into lives off performance, far from their natural world. Consequences of this captivity often go unseen, but they can be devastating. Nemu's story long before Shem's was one-off. First to reveal this heartbreaking reality, forcing us to confront the cost of captivity and humanity's treatment of the wild. It was 1965 when a remarkable event occurred off the coast of British Columbia, near a small town called Kaladamu. A young orca tangled in a massive silman net was pulled from the ocean on Dinto, a world far removed from the wild waters. He knew his name was Namu, and history would soon become one of the most controversial chapters in the history of orca captivity. Nahu's life began as a member of the C1 pod part of Thenarthurn resident orca community that had thrived for centuries in the Pacific Northwest. However, fate would soon take a darker turn. Disc covered by a fisherman named William Lobe Namu was sold to Ted Griffin, the owner of the Seattle Marine Aquarium. Griffin saw a lucrative opportunity not just to house the orca bot, to turn him into the star of larger shows, drawing in crowds, earning big money, and selling tickets. And so, nostalgic journey from the wild to captivity was set in motion. What followed would both captivate and horrify the world. Upon arriving in Seattle, Namu quickly became the star attraction at Griffin's aquarium. For the first time, the world had the chance to witness orca up close and personally. His playful behavior, his massive size, and his unflinching companionship with Griffin painted a picture of the killer whale as a gentle giant, a stark contrast, the wild and dangerous. Creatures often depicted in the media. Na's presence sparked a wave of public fascination, and the once feared orca became a beloved icon on. But what the public didn't see was the price Namu paid for this newfound fame. As his popularity grew, so did the pressures to perform. Namu, now confined to a small pen in Seattle's Pier 56, was subjected to daily routines that were far from natural. He was fed 400 pounds of salmon every day, but his captivity took a toll in his health. The once mighty killer whale who had roamed the open sea was now reduced to a spectacle. Still, Nayu's bond with Griffin was undeniable. Their connection, at times seemingly telepathic, captured the imagination of millions. But what the public didn't know was the dark, real-eyed bend. No's life in captivity in 1966, just before the premiere of Namu, My Best Friend the Orca passed away. The film, released that same year, told a heartwarming and idealized story of Amon and his heroic orca. It follows marine biologist Hank Donner, who discovers a wounded orca. Later, Namid Namu stranded on the shore of the Pacific Northwest. The plot centers around Hank's fight to protect Namu from local fishermen who view the orca as a threat to their livelihood. As the townspeople attempt to harm him, Hank swims with Namu to prove the orca's peaceful nature, ultimately earning the trust of both the animal and the town. The film played a significant role in shifting public perceptions of killer whales, casting them as majestic creatures worthy of protection rather than fear. Behind the scenes, however, Nayu's life was far darker and autopsy-reviled. He had been suffering from several illnesses, including a bacterial infection, skin rashes, and a stomach infection, likely caused by sewage runoff in Elliott Bay, where he had been relocated. Nayu's death was tragic, not only because of the suffering he endured, also because it exposed the hidden consequences of human fascination with these animals. While the movie was meant to showcase the bond between Namu and his human counterparts, the reality was far more sinister. The film painted a picture of an orca who willingly played with children, who protected his human friends from harm. But in truth, Nao's life had been anything but idyllic. He was confined to a small pen, isolated from his family, and forced to perform for the entertainment of others. The film's release, which should have been a celebration of Nau's life, was instead shadowed by the painful reality of his death, the public outpouring of grief following Nau's death was immense. Thousands mourned. The loss of the orca had captured their hearts. However, in Nau's death also sparked an important conversion about the ethics of keeping killer whales in captivity. In the years that followed, the world began to question whether the price of human entertainment was worth the suffering of these magnificent creatures. Ted Griffino had once seen Namu as a companion, was left to grapple with the consequences of his actions, while he had introduced the world to orcas as intelligent, emotional creatures. He had also played a part in their exploitation. Griffin would later go on to advocate for the release of captive orcas, but the damage had been done. Namu's story had served as a harsh reminder that humans had underestimated the needs and complexities of the animals they sought to control. Today, Namu's name is remembered not just as a movie title. Buddha is a symbol of the change he helped bring about. While the film may have told a fairy tale of a human orca friendship, reality of Namu's life was far more complex. His death was a tragic reminder that entertainment should never come at the cost of an animal's well-being. As Namu's story sparked the first wave of change, it was only the beginning of a larger conversation about captivity. Soon's world's attention shifted to Ku the orca, known to many as Siggy his life HOing. Namu's struggles would reveal theatrical truths of life in captivity. This is the tragic story of Ku and the tell captivity took on him. Ku was born in the wild-off Thekos of Iceland around September 24, 1976. He was just a toddler when his world was. Violently appended on 1979, a whaler named Joe Gunnarsson on his team working for the whaling Compagnia attacked Ku's family, the orcapod which had likely roamed the cold waters of the north. Atlantic for generations was torn apart, and Ku was captured at only 3 years old. He was taken to a small aquarium in Iceland far from the OceanLand family. He knew he was given the name Siggy, and eventually Ku. The name Hugh would carry through the rest of his tumultuous life. Ku's early years in captivity were nothing short of distressing his new home, a tiny barren tank at a theme park near a remote town in Iceland was a far cry from the vast open waters of his homeland as he grew his living conditions worsened. The small confined space did little to accommodate us natural instincts and behavior. 4 years ago, performed tricks for audiences living a life of entertainment that starkly contrasted his life in the wild. Despite the apparent cheerfulness of Thesos, something was deeply wrong. Ku wasfer, from home his health deteriorating. The calls for his release grew louder in 1982 after his time in Iceland. Ku was sold to Marineland in Ontario, Canada. There, he was thrust into a larger facility performing for bigger crowd. Sight the challenges continued. His skin began to show signs of stress, developing painful lesions likely caused by thepper conditions and chemicals in the water. Ku struggled to fit in with the older female orcas in the facility, as had not been part of their pod from the beginning. His attempts to interact were met with aggression, and he became a solitary, broken creature. Marineland Ball, to address the issue, sold him again in 1985. Ku's new home was Reno Aventura in Mexico City. The conditions here were perhaps the worst yet at only 10 feet long he was housed in a tank built for dolphins, a far cry from the space he needed. His growing body, now reaching 21 feet, barely fit in the cramped enclosure. The tank was only 65 feet wide and 22 feet deep. The water temperature was far warmer than Ku tolerated. The tank was filled with chlorine, a harsh chemical that irritated his skin. To Savamone, the park owners used salt water instead of natural seawater, further exacerbating his condition. Ko was Forsetto, perform up to 5 times a day despite his deteriorating health. He was a showpiece, a commodity that earned money, but at the cost of his well-being. Despite the harsh environment, Ko remained gentle. His spirit, though fractured by years of captivity, still showed remarkable resilience and compassion. In 1993, Ku's life changed forever when he became the star of Free Willy. The film told the heartwarming story of a young boy named Jesse who fought to free his captive orca from Willie K's portrayal of Willie. Resonant titty plea with audiences worldwide, transforming him from an anonymous captive orca into a global symbol of hope and freedom for marine animals. The film's powerful message struck a nerve, but it also divided opinions for many. Free Willy was an inspiring tale that celebrated the bond between humans and animals, sparking a wave of admiration for orcas like Ko. However, others saw the movie as deeply troubling, believing it highlighted the very exploitation it sought to condemn. Critics argued that isn't a real captive orca to tell a story about. Freedom was ironic, if not devastating, and called attention to the ethics of keeping such intelligent creators in captivity. For entertainment, whose real-life story mirrored Willis in many ways, further deepening the public's emotional connection to him. This connection sparked an unprecedented mint. Over 300 people college wrote letters and signed petitions demanding Ku's release. To them, Ko had come more than just a movie star. He was the living embodiment of the freedom Willie achieved on screen, but while the world rallied around him, the harsh truths about Ku's life painted a far darker picture, far from the vibrant, playful creature portrayed in Free Willy. C was seriously overweight by the time the movie hit theaters. His lesions had worsened. He had developed stomach ulcers, and his immune system was compromised. Hugh was barely able to perform even the $75 he earned for his role in the film. A sum that could have provided much-needed care was pocketed by his owners instead of being used to help him yet. The calls for his release continued, and soon a solution began to form in 1995, the Free Fray Willy Kait Foundation was established, led by Warner Brothers, and the International Marine Mammal Project Foundation worked tirelessly to raise funds for Kait's freedom. Over $7 million was raised, with contributions coming from generous benefactors and millions of school children with thismony. A plan was set in motion to rehabilitate Kait and, if possible, return him to the wild. In January 1996, Kait was moved from Mexico to the Oregon Coast Aquarium in Newport, Oregon. For the first time in his life, Kait lived in a tank with seawater and conditions where significantly better. He stayed there for 8 months, regaining some of his strength had lost during his years of captivity. His weight increased, and he became healthier, but the ultimate goal was to prepare him for his return to Thule. Preparations for Kait's release began in earnest in 1998. On September 9th, he was flown to Kik Bay, a smallest land off the coast of Iceland. Kait's rehabilitation was a careful, gradual process. He was trained to swim long distances, and to learn how to hunt for food on his own. He was fitted with a satellite transmitter and supervised swims in the open ocean. Began Kait was learning to become the orca he had on been, reconnecting with his natural instincts after 17 long years in captivity. Kait was ready for the ocean in the summer of 2002. The moment Evriana had waited for arrived. Kait was really excited to the wild off the coast of Iceland. It was a historic event, the first time a captive orca was returned to the open ocean. Initially, Kait swam freely in the open waters, spotted in the bay for days, but as the weeks passed, some thing next occurred. Despite his newfound freedom, still sought out human company. He remained close to the bay, often interacting with people, although sometimes swam with wild orcas, and never fully integrated with them. In December 2003, Kait, now 27 years old, was found swimming in the bay in Norway when succumbed to pneumonia. His passing was the tragic end of a long, complex journey, one that had started with hope but was ultimately too much for him to overcome. Thank you for joining us as we explore these chilling encounters with orcas. A sobering reminder of the immense risks of working with such powerful creatures, but this is just the beginning. Our next story, we uncover the tragic final moments of Alexis Martinez, a seasoned orca trainer whose routine session at Loro Park ended in her orb for a packed crowd. The orca heterostid suddenly attacked, leaving onlookers frozen in shock. What led to this devastating event? Click through to find out.